Hello. So we continue from where we left off in the last class. We just look into the perspective of a function once again quickly, and then we'll move on. So, uh, so the uh, perspective perspective is a function from uh, a higher like if there is a function f from Rn to R, Rn to R, then perspective is a function from Rn plus 1 to R defined by uh, so this is the extra variable t. uh, it is defined as t times f x over t. So what is essentially being done is uh, x is the variable, so we scale the independent variable, then we act the function on it, and then we multiply it by t. So it is a weird non-linear transformation happening, and we saw that the property which this thing holds is it preserves convexity, and the domain of G here is x over t, uh, x and t, such that x over t belongs in the domain of f. So this is how the domain changes. So the property is that it preserves convexity. Into one example, so the example is Euclidean norm squared, so which is x transpose x. So the perspective of this thing is this is my f. F of x is equal to x transpose x. So the perspective will be uh, t f x by t. So this is t times x by t transpose x by t. But t is a single variable, so we can just pull it out. So this x transpose t by t. And now this thing is convex. The result. This is convex because it has a form of quadratic over linear for t greater than 0. Uh, t greater than 0 by definition of the perspective. So if it is t greater than 0, the second derivative, that is the Hessian, it will be greater than 0, because this it will turn out to be some constant which is greater than 0, so it is convex. Okay, now we look at the conjugate function. Conjugate function is conjugate of a function. Basically what it does is uh, uh, if we have a function r to r, so f star y, which is the conjugate, uh, it is defined as, so let us write the definition first. uh, Definition, the conjugate function f star from r to r, Rn to r, defined as supremum of y transpose x minus fx over the domain of f, and the domain of this function is given by set of all y's such that y transpose x minus fx is uh, is finite for all values in all values of x in domain of f. Okay, so one way to visualize what is happening here is, suppose if we have a function uh, if we have this kind of function uh, so okay, so the line which is y transpose x, it will be something which is passing through origin and which has a slope. So it will be something like this. This is my y transpose x, uh, and what we are looking at is the maximum value of the gap between fx and y transpose x. So this is my fx, this is my y transpose x. So the maximum gap such that supremum now this is maximum of y transpose x minus fx. So this is y transpose x and this is fx. So the maximum comes out to be somewhere here, right? If you look at this, the gap, if you move x further to the right, the gap is decreasing. If we move x to the further left is to further to left, it is decreasing as well. So this point is the value of y. So this value, the y value, the slope of the function at that point f dash x is equal to the inclination of the line. You can immediately see that uh, the function, the conjugate of a function is always a convex function. It is always convex because what we are doing is we are taking the supremum over an affine family. So we just saw in the last class that if we take the supremum over an affine family, uh, the resulting function is always convex. So essentially, even if fx is non-convex, fx is some weird behaving functions, uh, this uh, this supremum, it maximizes over x, and therefore it is a function in y. It's a linear in y, so it doesn't have to do anything with the nature of fx. So uh, so fx can be anything, it can be anything weird, but the y transpose x minus fx is linear, and that's why its supremum is also convex. So it is essentially a good tool to convert some weird behaving functions into to a convex function. Okay, so we look at an example. So fx is minus log x. If this is my fx, then the conjugate is maximum over x over all x greater than 0, because that is the domain of log. It will be xy plus log x. So So to solve this, we can see that if we solve this for y greater than 0, this is unbounded. If y is greater than 0, it's a positive unbounded number. But if y is less than 0, then we can just differentiate and equate it to 0 to maximize. So which is y plus 1 over x equal to 0. So if x comes out to be minus 1 over y. So the conjugate is minus 1 over y times y plus log of minus 1 over y, which is just minus 1 minus log minus y, and the domain of the conjugate is y values less than 0, because for greater than 0 it is unbounded, less than 0. So this is the conjugate of this function. So let us get some more intuition about the conjugate. The expression, I'll rewrite the expression. F star y is equal to supremum uh, in the supremum in the domain of f xy minus fx. Okay, so we do it for 2 dimensions, or rather one dimension, because if our x is one dimensional, fx is one dimensional, that is the case we are going to consider, and such a case has a special name, Legendre transform. Like we say that Legendre transform of fx is f star y if fx is r to r. So take fx to be r to r, f from r to r. Okay. uh, so what does this mean? So let us take an example of a function. So I'm going to draw a function like this, suppose. So at okay, this is my x, this is my fx. Okay. So so what does this mean? Okay, so xy is the line which is passing through origin. So let us fix some value of y and then see what is the behavior of f star of that constant, and then we will extrapolate it to the entire function. So suppose if we are fixing y as a constant a, so we have f star a as the supremum of ay minus f of x, right? Now ay is a sorry ax. Now ax is a line which is passing through the origin. So ax is a line which is passing through the origin like this, right? And ax minus fx is the difference between the point fx and this line, right? So I think I should take fx to be something else so that it is easier to visualize. I take fx like this, and my line like this. Okay, and I'm going to do the visualization at this point, suppose, right? So this is my fx, which is going like this, and this is my line which is going like this. It will uh, intersect some at some point there. This is my f of x. Okay, so the this thing talks about the difference between ax and fx. So we have this difference is this difference, right? this this difference. uh, so basically this difference is maximum at some point, right? And it will be uh, lower on both sides, as you can see. This is smaller, this is getting larger to a point, uh, some point, and then it will keep on decreasing again. uh, Now with this point, what we do is we extend, rather we wait a second, I just extend this line a little bit. Okay. uh, okay this So this is the offset that I'm interested in, which is the supremum. So now what I do is I shift this line by this offset. So if I shift this line by this offset, what I get is this is a point on the line which, if I shift this line by the offset, uh, I'll get a line which is tangential to the function, and uh, tangential to the function, and it is like, it is tangential to the line function at this point, and it is parallel to the original line, original ax line. So this y distance is my offset. And now what I do is, so what this function is doing is it is taking its value of a slope. uh, so this is the slope is a, so it took a value slope a, and then it is producing an offset depending on the function. So basically this is a hyperplane. This thing is a hyperplane which is supporting the epigraph of my f of x. uh, so this hyperplane, to characterize a hyperplane we need two things. I mean, in our in 2D we need two things, the intercept and the slope. So the slope is given by this a, and the hyperplane intercept will be given by this function f of x. I mean, intercept will be given by the difference between the line and the function. So I got a hyperplane like this. So what if my original function is not convex? So if my original function is not convex, I draw a function which is not convex. So this is kind of a function which is not convex. uh, what can I say about its conjugate, right? So the conjugate is just the hyperplane values, hyperplane intercepts, right? So at this point, so we can see that there is a problem here in this area. There is a problem because we cannot have a hyperplane there. So how does it work in this case? So at this point we will have the uh, supporting hyperplane of the epigraph like this, and this is our uh, value of conjugate, right? So I just okay, I'll keep it. Okay. uh, and now the second part, the second point, I'll have another hyperplane, and this is going to be my intercept. So this is my value, this small intercept value. And as I go more and more flatter, if I make this is my a, the slope is very high, and I'm trying to do is I'm decreasing the slope. So as I'm decreasing the slope, at this point, after this point, uh, the hyperplane, supporting hyperplane will be constructed at this point, rather than getting to any of these points in between. So this is my hyperplane at that point. Something like this. Okay. So, and this is my conjugate value. Now when I bend the line further, what I get is another point, but this point is like this. The hyperplane, supporting hyperplane, will look like this, and my conjugate is decreasing further. It was a negative value, uh, and then rather I think yeah, so it was a very big value in negative when I started it, and then it decreased to 0, and then it went to some positive value, small positive values, and then it is further going down to a negative value kind of thing. So that is the behavior of the conjugate. That is a convex behavior. Like it is starting off at a point, and then it is uh, decreasing to a point, and then it is increasing back. So like what we are taking is this is the positive direction for the conjugate. This is the positive direction for the conjugate. If we take like that, this uh, for this setup, then that is what is happening to the conjugate. So no matter what function we are taking, our conjugate is going to be always convex. We can actually draw this in a uh, like we can draw this. This is actually a function between the slopes a and the conjugate f, f star of y. So y is this y. uh, so what is happening is my y is so I'm decreasing the slope slowly, and I reached 0 at a point. So okay, so before reaching 0 I was able to switch over to the next hump. So this was a hump. Okay, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, before reaching 0 itself I was able to change the behavior of the conjugate. So it is like, uh, so I started with something positive, and it had a big positive value, and then it uh, comes to 0 at some point, right? Because it is going to positive as well, so it will go like this, and then it is going to increase now further. This is the kind of nature of the conjugate in this case. Now we see something called as a double conjugate. A double conjugate is conjugate of a conjugate. So uh, double conjugate, uh, so it is, okay, uh, it is defined as f double star of x equal to supremum over supremum over x in domain of f star, xy minus f star y. So it is just the conjugate, but it is getting operated on the, already we have a conjugate function, so it is getting operated on the conjugate function. Okay, so now the conjugate, as the name is specified, like whenever we speak about conjugate of something, the conjugate of something should be the original stuff. So here also, if we are talking about convex function, then the conjugate of conjugate is the convex function itself. But if it is not if it is not convex, then this thing is not guaranteed. So if f star x will be equal to fx if f is conjugate, sorry, f is convex. So let us get into the intuition of why this is true. uh, so now let us try to visualize the double conjugate. uh, so we have this setup which we had in our previous figure. uh, this is x, this is some function f of x, and we had a function like this, and we said that the uh, for any given uh, slope, we'll have a hyperplane which is supporting that epigraph, right? Okay, so when we are talking about the double conjugate, so this is our double conjugate expression. So for any fixed x, what we do is, okay, so let us try to draw this. We are fixing one x, fix a value of x here, and this is the line which is passing through the x, point x, right? So this is okay. I did something wrong here. This is y. This should be y. So as the expression suggests, we are taking a supremum over all the possible values of y. So all the possible values of y for this x, for this given x, uh, will be covered by this line, this dotted line. So what we do is, so for this setup, it will be the supremum of all the y values. So so all the possible y values, if we have a particular x, it will look like this. So suppose this is my function, this is my entire function is covered in this. This is my like support of the function. So if this is the support, then the um, there are some certain values of possible values of y which I can cover. So one of the values is this value. This is the maximum slope I can have in one direction, and on the other direction I can have this. Right. So this is my possible values of y. This brown line is the possible values of y. Right. So in this possible values of y, what I am trying to find is, I am trying to maximize what my value of y can be. So if we look closer, the maximum value will be this point, And if we move a little bit towards the, so we are keeping this x constant, we are keeping this is for a fixed x, we are doing this for a fixed x. We are trying to find out the double conjugate for this fixed x. Okay, so for this fixed x I'm trying to move yeah, okay, for this fixed x this will be the supremum of y's, this point. Now if I take another x, suppose I take an x here, uh, suppose this is my second x. So if I take an x here, so the supremum will be this point, right? Because this is what is carried out, this is what is obtained by doing the hyperplane. This is what is obtained by constructing the hyperplane. So this value, I cannot get a y value which is more than this. So this is my supremum of y. So, and that will be the f star of f double star of x, x2. This is x2, sorry. If this is x2, this will be the f double star of x2. This was x1 and this is the f double star of x1, right? So what we see is that this brown uh, enclosure, so if I try to draw it with another color, this is my double conjugate. This area, it will come like this, and I will not area, this structure it will, and for a, now this is a convex region, this region is convex, right? It's a convex region within these limits. So for a convex region, the f double star of x2, f double star of x is going to be the same value, because like it is obvious by geometry. And further we move like this, right? So this blue structure is what is my conjugate of a conjugate. So this is obvious that if we have a convex function like this, I'll be always having a hyperplane, a supporting hyperplane for the epigraph, and my epigraph can be constructed as intersections of all the hyperspaces which are above the hyperplanes, right? So what I'm trying is I can get the epigraph, exact epigraph back from all these hyperplanes, but it cannot be done in the case of a non-convex function. And that's why when I have a convex function, my f double star of x is equal to f of x. So that is the intuition. Next is quasi-convex functions. We have already seen an introduction to quasi-convex functions in one video, so I'll repeat that. So before getting into quasi-convex functions, we need to know what is an alpha sublevel set. So if we have a function fx, then an alpha sublevel set is the value of all the x values which are which give the which give a value which are less than alpha in the function. That is all the values of x in the domain of f such that f of x is less than equal to alpha. There is another opposite analog of this sublevel sets. They are called super level sets, and it is just f of x greater than equal to super level sets. I don't know if this is the notation, but for the time being, this is the super level sets. So a quasi-convex function is a function of which the the quasi-convex function is a function for which all the alpha sublevel sets are convex. So alpha sublevel sets are convex. Similarly, there is quasi-concave functions, and quasi-concave is just the opposite of quasi-convex. This is quasi-convex. So alpha. Here it is super level sets. So alpha super level sets are convex. So for example, a function like this, this is going to be a quasi-concave function, because this is my alpha super level set. I just draw the x values here. This is going to be my alpha super level set. So my alpha super level set is convex. So that's why this function is quasi concave. So now, similar to the Jensen's inequality, there is one inequality which is valid for quasi convex and quasi concave sets, and that is this definition. That is this inequality. So basically, this can also be used to define quasi convex sets, and it goes like this. It is alpha f of lambda for any for any x and y in the domain of the function f of lambda x plus 1 minus lambda y, which is a convex combination of x and y. The function should be always less than or equal to maximum of f of x or f of y. So this thing holds because, for example, if you look at this function, or okay, let me draw another one. So this is a function which is quasi-convex. So for any two values, so I take one x here and I take one y here, and the convex combination, the function of convex combination is the functions is the value is are the y values which are lying in between these values, between f of x and f of y, right? So this is f of x, this is f of y. This value, so all these values should be less than or equal to the maximum among fx and fy. So fy is greater in this figure, so it should be less than all these figures. All these values should be less than f of y. For example, if I take another function which does not exhibit this properties, it will look something like this. So there is this f of x, and there is this f of y. No, let this be x and y. They are the extreme points. So this is f of x and this is f of y, x, y. So there are points at which the value is more than the maximum of f of x and f of y. So this function is not quasi-convex. all convex functions are quasi-convex. So convex functions imply quasi-convexity, but it is not the other way around. Not necessary the other way around. So let us look at a few examples. So all the convex functions are quasi-convex, uh, but there are certain functions which are only quasi-convex, like like these functions. Like this one is this one like this function. It is not convex, but it is quasi-convex because it is uh, the the line joining the two points on the function. It lies above at certain points. It lies above the function curve at certain points. And for example, if I take two other values, so these values, it lies below the curve, so it is not convex, but it is quasi-convex. Another classical example is the ceiling function. So ceiling function is it looks like this. So we can see that by the definition of or even by this inequality, we can see that this inequality holds here, because whatever values we take, uh, two values, the values which are lying in between, they do not cross the maximum value of among the two. Just like we have the first order conditions for convex functions, we have first order conditions for quasi convex functions also. So first order conditions for quasi convex, so it is like this. uh, the condition is this: f of y, if f of y is less than equal to f of x, where x and y are two values in the domain of f, of course, this is going to be, this implies that the normal at x makes an obtuse angle with y minus x. Okay, what does it mean? So if I have uh, so if I have x1 and x2, two variables, and um, I have a function z equal to f of x1 x2, right? It's a function from R2 to R. Sorry. So the level sets of this function, since it is quasi convex, the level sets of this function will look like this. It is not necessary that it should be, but it looks something like this. I'm just drawing a case in which there is a pit like function, and these are the level sets. Okay, so I have fy less than fx, so I take 2 points x and y. So my fy, if my fy is less than fx, my y should be this thing, x should be this thing, this point. So this means that the gradient has an obtuse angle with y minus x. So y minus x is a vector which has this direction, right? It is y minus x, so it has a direction from x to y. So this is the direction of y minus x, and uh, the direction of the normal has a direction which is uh, towards the reader at this point, at x. It is like if I represent it by dot, so it is like by dot, represented by dot. uh, so the angle between the normal and this y minus x is obtuse. This is my normal and this is my y minus x. So this angle is obtuse. This is more clear if I take something like this, and I have 2 points. So y minus x will be this line here. This is y, this is x, so this will be y minus x. This is the direction of y minus x, and the normal at x will be that direction, like it will be pointing away from x. So this angle is always obtuse. That is what is meant by this statement.